Ever since I started YouTube, people have asked me to talk about the comics based on Batman the Animated Series. The thing was, I hadn't really read many of them, so I couldn't do that. Now though, I've gone through both runs based on the show, the Batman Adventures and the Batman and Robin Adventures, and read every single issue. I am now finally ready to talk about the Batman the Animated Series spin-off comics. As I so often do, I will do this in the form of a list, namely a list of my top 10 favorite Batman TAS comic issues. A list that wasn't easy to make, I might add, as these two runs had some pretty damn great stories. Now, I will not include Mad Love, the famous one-shot special that introduced Harley Quinn's origin. I will not do that because it would simply be too obvious, as everyone knows of this comic, and I've also already talked about it on my list of Harley Quinn stories. Also, I will only include comics based on Batman TAS, so that means no comics based on the final redesigned season known as the New Batman Adventures. That season has always felt separate to me, and as such, so do the comics. I will most likely make a separate list for those comics in the future though. Anyway, without further ado, let's get to the list. Number 10. Harley and Ivy. And Robin? From the Batman and Robin Adventures number 8. This one was written by Paul Dini himself, writer of the show, and penciled by Rick Burchett. So in it, Robin the boy blunder intercepts Harley Quinn trying to break her beloved hyena pets out of the zoo. Everything seems to go fine and Harley is set to be dragged back to Arkham. But then her seductive partner Poison Ivy shows up out of nowhere and entangles Robin in her vines. Ivy then proceeds to give Robin one of her patented mind control kisses. And now under her spell, Robin becomes the duo's accomplice. Soon not only does he assist in their crimes, but he begins to plot them as well. Turns out Robin has the chops to be a criminal mastermind. This leads to Ivy favoring him over her old gal pal, which Harley naturally doesn't like. Needless to say, three's a crowd, and someone has to go. This comic reminds me a lot of an episode of the 60s TV show, one of my favorites, where Catwoman brainwashed Robin into becoming her accomplice. I don't know what it is, but I just love seeing Batman's female villains seducing poor Dick and turning him to the dark side. All the while Batman stands by helplessly. It's just hilarious, and this comic sure is hilarious. What's also really funny here is the fact that while influenced by evil, Robin becomes a far greater criminal than any of the rogues gallery. As long as Robin runs the trio, Batman has no chance of stopping them. Just shows how dangerous the boy blunder would be if he actually turned to the dark side. Number 9. The Joker's Last Laugh, from the Batman and Robin Adventures 18. This one was written by Ty Templeton and penciled by Brandon Cruz. This comic is not to be confused with the episode Last Laugh, a completely different Joker story. This one, I might add, is far superior too. In it, the unthinkable has happened. The Joker has lost his sense of humor. He can no longer see the funny thing in anything, and he can no longer laugh. This is all a result of a series of billboards set up all over Gotham. Billboards advertising a newspaper series special dedicated to the crime-fighting careers of the dynamic duo. The Joker is jealous of this attention these dynamic dimwits are getting. He feels that its attention better spent on him. After all, with his entertaining wacky antics, the Joker feels he's done far more for Gotham than Batman and Robin. They should be celebrating him. Yeah, I don't know what you expected, Joker. Anyway, his ever-loyal sidekick Harley Quinn decides to take her puddin' out on the town and somehow find a way to make him laugh again, no matter the cost. Poor Gotham. So this comic reminds me of the War of Jokes and Riddles. In that story, the Joker had also lost his sense of humor. While I overall don't like that story, I do find this idea with the Joker to be very interesting. Here though, it is actually done right. So take that, Tom King. The TAS comics did it way better 20 years earlier. It's an absolutely hilarious comic. Perhaps the funniest of the entire TAS comic run, and what finally gets the Joker to laugh again is pretty priceless. Number 8. The Holiday Special. a one-shot Christmas special. A whole slew of people from the show worked on this one, including Paul Dini, Bruce Timm, Dan Riba, and Glenn Murakami. I think most of you are familiar with this one, as it was adapted into an episode of the new Batman Adventures. Anyway, this comic contains 4 short, villain-centric Christmas stories, each one set on a different day of December. The first one takes place in a department store on the 3rd of December, where a gang of kid thieves are picking the place clean. These kids are then revealed to be parts of Clayface. Whoever would have suspected that? A very clever use of Clayface's shape-shifting powers. The second tale, set on December 17th, features Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy kidnapping Bruce Wayne. Once again, Ivy uses her lips to mind control a member of the Bat family. With billionaire Bruce Wayne and all of his credit cards at their disposal, the two gals go out for a night of excessive Christmas shopping. The third story, set on Christmas Eve itself, and not included in the animated episode if I remember correctly, features Mr. Freeze. With no snow on Christmas Eve, Freeze decides to escape from Arkham and make it snow with one of his ice cannons. When Batman finally catches up with him, we learn why exactly Freeze did this. Victor and his late wife Nora got married on a snowy Christmas Eve 10 years ago, and Nora loved the snow. So yeah, nothing sinister going on this time. The only Freeze appearance in all of these TAS comics for some reason, but it sure is a great one. And finally, in the fourth story, set on New Year's Eve, the Joker is at it again. This time he's going to ring in the new year with a sonic bomb at the Gotham Square. Unless Batman stops him, of course. All of these stories are good, and combined they make for a great Bat-Villain Christmas celebration. Yeah, what else can I say? A collection of 4 Christmas rogue stories. What's not to love about that? Number 7. Riot Act, from the Batman Adventures issues 4 and 5. This two-parter was written by Martin Pascoe and Kelly Puckett, and penciled by Brad Rader. In this one, the Scarecrow unleashes a new diabolical plot upon Gotham City. A rather unusual plot though. This time he's not going to terrorize the city with nightmares, but illiteracy. Yeah, that's right. Using a new device of his, Professor Crane turns every citizen in Gotham illiterate. With no one able to read anymore, chaos naturally ensues. Now, why is Crane doing this? Well, he's doing it for 2 reasons. 1. Ransom money. He'll turn off the device if he's paid a certain sum by the government. And 2, and this is perhaps the most important reason, Crane is trying to teach Gotham a lesson. You see, Crane is sickened by the drop in student grades as of late. It seems like the school system is failing and youngsters are only getting dumber. Crane sees a dark future ahead, and by showcasing just what kind of problems a nation of nitwits will lead to, he hopes that people will wake up and straighten up. A very interesting Scarecrow scheme, one that focuses less on the Scarecrow part of the character and more on the Professor Crane part. Let's not forget that he used to be a teacher after all, and fear isn't his sole interest. A very grand scale Scarecrow plot too, one that severely cripples the entire city. This is a straight up doomsday situation he creates here. In fact, this may be the most dire state Gotham is put in for the entire series, animated series included. The Scarecrow never really got a truly fantastic episode on the show, but here he did. Number 6. It Takes a Cat, from the Batman and Robin Adventures 16. This story was written by Ty Templeton and penciled by Brandon Cruz. In it, the Catwoman pulls off another daring heist. Or wait, it can't be Catwoman, because Selina Kyle has reformed, leaving her criminal days behind her. Realizing that a copycat is trying to frame her, Selina sets out to find the true culprit, all the while avoiding Batman and the law. However, when she finally meets the copycat, she's in for a bit of a shock. Turns out it's not even a woman, but a man, a millionaire named Thomas Blake. Yep, the Catman. Now, the Catman wasn't actually trying to frame Selina. That was simply an accident. the Catman is actually a giant fan of Selina and simply wanted to impress her and arrange so that the two could meet. You see, Blake wishes to team up with her and form a daring cat burglar duo. But is the reformed Catwoman really interested in that? Catwoman was another rogue who was never really done that well on the show. Well, in these TAS comics, she's actually pretty great. It's basically the classic 90s Jim Balance Catwoman, a confident, playful master thief, but of course with the appearance of the TAS version. This issue is the best out of all the Catwoman ones in my opinion. A better Catwoman reform story than the actual reform episode she got on the show, Catwalk. Catman is great in this issue too, one of my favorite takes on the character in fact. A far better take than what we later actually got on the new Batman Adventures. I wish they'd gone with this version instead, which far more resembled the regular comics anyway. Number 5. Joker's Late Night Lunacy, from the Batman Adventures number 3. It was written by Kelly Puckett and penciled by Ty Templeton. In this one, that diva the Joker does what he always does. He uses mass media to spread his message. His message, as usual, is chaos. The Joker kidnaps Commissioner Gordon and then features him on a mock talk show, Joker TV. The Joker then proceeds to beat the shit out of Gordon with a baseball bat in front of all of Gotham. Gordon being one of the highest ranking city officials and a symbol of law and order, this is meant to make every Gothamite feel unsafe. After all, if the Joker can get to Gordon and put him in such a helpless state, he can do it to anyone. In other words, there is no law and order in Gotham. Pretty dark stuff for this comic based on a cartoon. Gordon is only the first guest on Joker TV though. The next intended guest is District Attorney Harvey Dent. Yep, this comic takes place before Two-Face Part 1 and 2. Batman deduces this though and contacts Harvey. Together, the Dark Knight and the White Knight then concoct a clever scheme to trick Joker and save their friend Jim. Definitely getting Dark Knight vibes from this one, despite being published over a decade before The Dark Knight. Anyway, this is my favorite Joker tale from these TAS comics. A darker Joker than we ever got on the show. I mean, how often did Mark Hamill's Joker rant on about chaos? No, this Joker resembles more certain versions from the comics and the Dark Knight's Joker. It's still a very funny Joker, and I can still hear Hamill's voice as I read his lines. So it still is very much TAS Joker. The comic obviously also appealed to me by featuring Harvey Dent. It's nice to see more of a pre-disfigured Harvey. We never really got that much of that on the show. It's also nice to see such a heroic Harvey, and to see him team up with Batman. On the show we only got scenes with him and Bruce Wayne. Number 4. The Batman Adventures Annual number 1. The first annual these comics produced. It was written by Paul Dini with art by numerous different artists, including Bruce Timm, Klaus Janson, and John Byrne. So a lot of heavy hitters on this one. Perhaps not so strange, as it's another collection of short rogue stories. The framework centers around Roxy Rocket, a villainess who debuted in this very issue. Following her crime spree and subsequent incarceration, Roxy has now been paroled and promises to go straight. Seeing these news causes Batman and Alfred to reminisce about the times other rogues seemingly reformed only to eventually fall off the wagon once again. The first rogue is Arnold Wesker, the ventriloquist. Yeah, he got a reform story in these TAS comics before he got one on the new Batman Adventures, so I guess he reformed twice. Anyway, after being rehabilitated, Arnold gets himself a job at a kids' TV show as a puppeteer. Things go well, until the show is cancelled, and the show's host, Mitzi, decides to get revenge on the network executive who cancelled it. Revenge she figures Arnold can arrange, just as soon as he's reunited with Scarface. The second rogue is Harley. Her story is fittingly very short. She basically goes out of Arkham, meets the Joker, and immediately goes back into Arkham. The story of her life. The third is the Scarecrow. He never got a reform episode on the show, but he did get one here. It's probably my favorite out of the bunch too. Tired of battling the Batman and committing crimes, Crane decides to call it quits. So after escaping Arkham, he leaves Gotham City, takes on a fake identity, and forges teaching credentials. With these credentials, Crane gets himself a job at an upstate college and begins to live the quiet life of a professor once again. During this time, he becomes very close with one of his students, an intelligent young woman named Molly Randall. Of course, something happens that snaps Crane back into his Scarecrow persona and ruins all of this. That something is Molly getting beaten and possibly raped by her date one night. Outraged, Crane dons his old work clothes once again and whips out the old reliable fear toxin. The boy responsible is about to get a visit from the Scarecrow. Really one of the greatest Scarecrow stories ever told. It's such a shame this one was never made as an episode. The final story features the Joker. It's not a reform story, so it doesn't quite belong, but it's great nonetheless. It's basically about what happens after the Joker has escaped from a fight with Batman, and what happens is both hilarious and scary. But isn't that always the case with the Joker? So yeah, a collection of villain reform stories. How could I not possibly love this and rank it very high on the list? Number 3. Two-Timer, from the Batman and Robin Adventures issues 1 and 2. This two-parter was written by Paul Dini and penciled by Ty Templeton. So in this one, Harvey Dent is well on his way towards reforming and being cured of his Two-Face persona. He owes a lot of this progress due to the constant support of his loved ones, namely his fiancée Grace Lamont and his best friend Bruce Wayne. However, when that son of a bitch the Joker finds out about this, he decides to, just for the heck of it, ruin it all. The Joker puts in plan a twisted scheme to trick Harvey into thinking that Bruce and Grace are having an affair. It first begins with simple manipulation, which then completely goes off the rails when he has Harley on the outside stage a fake news report about Bruce and Grace's supposed marriage. In the end, the Clown Prince gets the exact result he wanted. All of Harvey's progress is completely undone, and he becomes Two-Face once again, now worse than ever. A furious Two-Face soon escapes Arkham, and goes after the two friends he thinks have played him for a sap. Another one that gives me Dark Knight vibes. The Joker sure does love to fuck with Harvey Dent. I wonder why that is. Why don't you go pick on the Penguin instead, you big bully? Yeah, Joker really is an evil bastard. This story is definitely the Joker at his douchiest. And poor Harvey. This is probably the most tragic and depressing Two-Face story ever made. He was so close to being fine again, but instead everything is made a lot worse, with practically no hope at all any longer. And I guess we now know why Grace never appeared again on the show after Two-Face Part 1 and 2. By the way, there are actually rumors that this comic was originally meant to be made as an animated movie, but then they opted to make Mask of the Phantasm instead. I don't know, as much as I love Phantasm, I probably would have preferred getting this one. Number 2. Just Another Night, from the Batman Adventures 33. It was written by Ty Templeton and penciled by Dev Maiden. This story doesn't feature any rogues at all, and me being such a big rogues fan, yet still placing it as my number 2, well, then it's gotta be pretty damn great, doesn't it? Yeah, it is. In it, Bruce has been going steady with a woman named Veronica Thomas for a while. Veronica has a son named Justin, whom Bruce is getting along with really well too. It seems like Bruce just might have finally found the one. One evening, he takes Veronica and Justin out to the movies, namely to a theater hosting a Grey Ghost Festival, Bruce's favorite show as a kid. So this one obviously takes place after the Grey Ghost episode, the show having been resurrected once again after the events of that episode. Anyway, after the show is over and the trio head for home, they're stopped at gunpoint by a mugger. Yeah, I think you see where this is going. In fact, I won't spoil anymore. All I'll say is, this is easily one of the greatest Batman stories ever told. Not just in the animated universe, but among all Batman stories. You simply have to read it. And now for my very favorite Batman TAS comic. Number 1, 50/50. From the Batman and Robin Adventures 22. This one was written by Ty Templeton and penciled by Brandon Cruz. So of course a Two-Face tale naps the #1 spot. What did you expect? It's me after all. Anyway, in this story, Two-Face is unwillingly busted out of a prison transport. During this escape, he loses his coin too. Later at a hideout, he's given a cheap replacement. He's gotta have his coin after all. And his mysterious savior is revealed. Mobster Johnny Infantino. Johnny wants Two-Face's help in defeating a rival of his, a gangster whom Harvey Dent investigated as DA. Harvey never had a chance to put him away, as the accident then happened. Johnny knows that Harvey has files on this mook stashed away somewhere though, and he wants Two-Face to hand them over. Since it's Two-Face we're dealing with here though, it's not up to him, it's up to the coin to decide. And unfortunately, the coin decides against Johnny's favor. So in a desperate attempt to persuade Harvey, the mobster goes after his former fiancée, Grace. Will Two-Face save Grace from the vicious crooks, or just let them have her? Again, it's all up to the coin. This is a direct sequel of sorts to the previous Two-Face story, where Harvey and Grace's relationship was basically destroyed. This one is a bit more optimistic. The previous one proposed the idea that Harvey will never be free of Two-Face. He will always have a dark side. This I kind of agree with actually. He will always have a dark side, but he will also always have a good side. While the previous story focused more on his dark side, I'd say this one gives both of them the spotlight. Harvey truly is a man split down the middle. Neither of his sides are ever truly in charge though. It's always the coin. I don't know if a better story about Harvey's reliance on the coin has ever been made. The coin and Harvey's constant deciding with it is the focus here. He can commit heinous acts and he can commit noble acts. It all depends on which side the coin lands on. It's 50-50, no bias, not even when it concerns his loved ones. So Two-Face truly is fair, and thus equally as good as he is evil. A fantastic Two-Face story. Of course, I don't know how many would name it their #1 out of these. I obviously have a bias when it comes to Harvey, and don't quite play fair. So there you have it, my top 10 Batman TAS comics. Considering there were so many good issues though, here's a few honorary mentions. The Batman and Robin Adventures 4, a great Penguin story. The Batman and Robin Adventures 6, a great Robin-focused story. The Batman and Robin Adventures 7, a great ventriloquist and Scarface story. And I can't possibly exclude the Riddler, so here are the 3 Riddler-centric stories these comics had to offer. The Batman Adventures 10, the Batman and Robin Adventures 3, and the Batman and Robin Adventures 21. All 3 are good, but none of them quite good enough to crack my top 10. Still, I highly recommend them to any Riddler fan. If you love Batman the Animated Series and want more from that universe, I suggest you check out these 10 issues plus the honorary mentions. Or if you have the time, read the entire runs. Very few issues are outright bad, and I think you will enjoy most of them. Anyway, as always, remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.